Welcome back to Boomtown Podcast, where we explore all the explosive growth going on in Huntsville, both on and off the arsenal. I'm Cameron Walker, broker owner of Cameron Walker Realty, located right here in Huntsville, and my co-host Megan's here.
Hello, everyone.
All right, today we're going to jump on a topic that's really important to a lot of people, particularly if you're moving here from another area, because you may not be familiar with the differences between our area and others. So Megan's been working with a couple of insurance agents, getting some information about how people can either save money when they're getting insurance or potentially cost themselves something down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick it over to you and let you fire it off.
Okay. So this is a big thing for people. Insurance has gone through the roof in a lot of places. It's gotten higher here, not as terrible as, say, Florida or the coastal states, but everywhere it's a concern. And we want to talk a little bit about how you save some money on that.
Absolutely. And I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago with family from Texas. They're having similar issues, but instead of it being thunder, tornadoes or hurricanes, it's actually hail damage.
Yeah, and we get hail here too. And speaking of hail damage, one of the ways that you can save money on your insurance is by getting a weatherproof roof, and that can be one of these metal roofs or one that's actually wind resistant. It's called a wind resistant roof. If you live on the coast, there's actually a program where you can get the state of Alabama to help you pay for that roof. Unfortunately, not here, but it'll still save you up to like 20% on your insurance. And that depends on the provider. So if you know that you already have this and you haven't talked to your insurance company, you need to let them know. And if you're considering purchasing a house and it has a metal roof or weather resistant roof, or you're working with a builder and you know that they do some stuff to that roof that's unusual, you might want to find out what that is and check with your insurance company and see if that can save you some money. I think you had something like that happen with one of your clients.
Absolutely. Right? So I had somebody build new construction last year in Athens, and the builder that we use also builds on the coastal areas.
Yeah.
And so rather than have different set of standards wherever they build, they just use one standard throughout. So up here in Huntsville, we have now roofs with hurricane ties, different sets of walls and all that. And my client reached out to his insurance company, found out there was a discount program. It was pretty significant too. And although the builder didn't realize this, the home actually qualified. Now he had to ask the builder several questions, have him fill out a questionnaire, but it saved him a considerable amount of money every year.
That's okay, first of all, kudos to the builder for building the roof, and then cheers to the marketing team for not knowing that and using it as a sales point.
And they still don't. So these are those hidden things that can save you money that you just don't know are out there.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I didn't know is if you have a home alarm system and that is hooked up to a company, that'll save you money on your homeowner's insurance. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. I actually sold insurance for a little bit. So, yeah. So things like the age of the home, proximity of the nearest fire hydrant, water remediation, alarms, all monitored alarms, really, new roofs, all those things can go into saving you money on your homeowner's insurance.
Excellent. And then the other thing that I was told by one of the agents that I work with is if you have a claim and it's minor, call somebody to work on that house get quotes before you call the insurance company, because it might not even meet your deductible. Know what your deductible is, first of all. And if you have like a little bit of hail damage and you need to replace a couple of shingles, do not, as a first thing that you do, call your insurance company and say, oh, I have to replace some shingles. Because even if you don't end up using them, there might be a claim for zero, which could raise your insurance rate. Not all companies do this, but it does happen, and you just don't want to mess with that. So obviously, if your roof is blown off, you call the insurance company, you get help. But if it's minor, a branch lands on your roof, a couple of shingles, and it's, $1,000 or something, and it doesn't even meet your deductible, don't call them. That will save you money in the long run.
Absolutely. And when you make these insurance claims, there's a further hidden cost to it. And what that means is a lot of insurance providers actually, the claim sticks with the house. Mm-hmm. So you go to sell your house 2 years later, your buyer, their insurance is higher. That's either a turnoff or could potentially prevent them from qualifying for their mortgage because that insurance premium is part of that total mortgage payment. So it affects their debt to income ratios when they go to buy. When I was selling homeowners insurance several years back, we actually ran into this a few times. And to your point, it was people that may not have even followed through with the claim
Yeah.
or used the insurance to repair the roof. They strictly just reached out because they didn't know what to do
'Cause you
next,
want
and they were penalized.
Yeah, and that's awful, but that is how it works. It's how it works with automobile insurance as well. So
Absolutely.
be careful. Those insurance people are not your friends.
I wouldn't go that far, but maybe
Was, but
maybe the people in the office are
yeah,
great,
yeah.
but whoever the actuary is in the background, you don't
Yeah,
know
you
them,
have
and we
to.
don't know
But
their.
and I didn't mean that the person helping you. I meant that you need to deal with this yourself and not treat the insurance person like they're going to solve the problem for you. You need to figure out the solution to the problem, and then if insurance is needed and makes sense, then you do that.
Yeah,
The other thing that I've seen is that the difference in quotes from dealer to dealer with insurance can be a lot.
absolutely. And in the work that gets performed. So several years ago, I had somebody selling a house, and every time you go to sell a house, the water heater or the HVAC goes out. It's guaranteed. Don't know why that happens. But his water heater went out right in the middle of winter. It's a vacant home, and we needed to get it repaired right before we listed. Called around and got several quotes, some of which were as high as $1,500. And these are big name local companies that a lot of people use. And it was actually a company he was using for an annual service provider. And they were the ones that gouged him the most. Called around, got another quote, $1,100. And finally, we got a guy that installed it for the cost of both the water heater and the plumbing fixtures to go along with it, and maybe like $150 for delivery and installation. So we went from $1,500 to under $700
Yeah.
for the whole kit and caboodle. And it's like, that's the difference of calling around and getting those different quotes.
Yeah, and it's the same with your homeowner's insurance. I had a deal recently where the numbers weren't working because they take this insurance and they put it in an escrow account. It comes, if you have a certain types of mortgages, the insurance plays a role in whether you qualify. And we were getting quotes for about like $3,000 a year for this insurance, smaller house. That was too much
Yeah.
for these numbers to work. We were able to get this down by simply calling other insurance providers. I think we ended up getting it for $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of shopping around. And a lot of people just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with insurance, with all kinds of things having to do with a house, because it's not clear, because you can't just go on the internet and see different prices. I mean, there are companies that say that you can with insurance, but it's still tricky. You have to sign up, then you get spammed, and you still don't have the best quote. That's you'll get like 30 calls a day trying to sell you insurance. If you do that, it's probably, it is better just to get a list of people, call them directly, get their quotes.
For sure. There's a couple of surprising things out there for people. Number one is you have to compare apples to apples. There's actually two different levels of homeowners insurance. One pays off your mortgage, gets you in the equity that might be missing if you might have built if you lose the house. The other one does a full rebuild, including carrying away debris.
Yeah.
So that's a surprise for a lot of people. And you could be comparing apples to oranges because one person may be quoting you one style of insurance and somebody else may be quoting you the other.
Yeah.
The other thing is you need to look at the individual coverages within, property damage, liabilities, all those things like, how much are you covered if somebody gets hurt on your property, right? And then you also need to look at the deductible. It has a huge impact on what your monthly and annual premiums are. And so always compare apples to apples. The other problem people face with this is big name insurance carriers. A lot of them that you have to be a member to use. Those can be some of the worst offenders when it comes to price gouging because they've spent 50, 60 years building up this great reputation. Over the years, the people that built that reputation have slid out of the business, and now it's just a money-making machine. So I see a lot of people with big names that we all want to use that 10 years ago gave you a great premium and great service, and now they no longer do. But because you expect them to, you don't shop around, you don't realize they're twice as much as the other guy.
Yeah. So the bottom line is really to shop around and then really dive deep into what coverage you're getting, decide what coverage you need,
Absolutely.
what you actually want. If do you have enough income and cash that you would pay if you lost a couple shingles, or do you need your insurance to cover that?
Yeah.
Because long term, does it make sense? How likely are you to have these little things happen? Personally, I don't pay for little things. We fix the little things on our house.
Yeah.
If a storm takes off a few shingles, we pay for that. And then, our insurance is for if something big happens.
For sure. And then a lot of these insurance carriers actually have additional perks, kind of like a credit card. They'll cover like the insurance on your rental car. I know when I worked for State Farm, one of the things they offered was a home warranty for your appliances, things like that, if they got, damaged or went out of service.
Yeah.
I know I was looking at USAA the other day, and for their members, they offer a 15% monthly discount on pod storage. So if you're moving across the country, you're going to be renting for 3 months where your renting's already furnished or won't take all of your furnishings. That can save you money as well. So definitely look into the different perks available with the different insurance provider. I'm sure there's a really broad scale of, what's available.
And the other thing that I feel like we need to warn people about is floods.
Yeah.
Because there is separate flood insurance that exists. And this is provided through FEMA. The flood insurance, it's government insurance. Yeah. And if you do not have flood insurance and your house floods, whether it's in a flood zone or not in a flood zone, your regular insurance will not cover that. So something to consider is, should my house be in a flood zone? And it's not.
Right.
Is it, nothing is perfect when it comes to these surveys. And if your house is not in a flood zone and you get flood insurance, it's not going to be very expensive.
Correct.
You can look around and kind of assess. Am I by a river? Is it flat? Is it low? And maybe you want to pay a little bit extra so that you can have some protection if that were to happen, because there are, floods happen in and out of the flood zones.
Absolutely. We're in an area that gets a lot of rain. I mean, I was just out for a walk yesterday and noticed the creek near my house is getting pretty high. Fortunately, I'm uphill from it.
Yeah.
But if I were in a lower lying home there, and so many things can't be replaced, right? So that's something you have to consider too. But there are different levels of flood insurance, and it is based on your risk, how much risk is your house, but you can get flood insurance that's private as well. And that's considerably cheaper than the FEMA insurance.
Yeah.
Now it all depends on what type of loan program you are in. If you're required to have FEMA, or you can have private, but if you aren't required to have a flood insurance, to my understanding, you can always get private.
Yeah. And we don't want to scare people, and everyone doesn't need it. But if you're like, hey, it's weird that nobody's ever told me I need flood insurance. If you're thinking that, then maybe it is weird.
It all depends on where the house is located.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt. What else?
Let's kind of run the gamut for me.
Okay. I think that we've done what we need to do here. I think that we've shared, what we think is most important. I do want to leave this open if people have specific questions. We'll either answer them or communicate with the insurance professionals that we work with to get you a really good answer.
Absolutely. And while we know quite a few of them, that also brings up when we make those referrals.
Yeah.
Not going to just send you to one person. If you need recommendations, we'll give you several companies that have varying levels of service so that our clients can make that decision.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching or listening. You can always catch us on audio on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, or you can watch our video on YouTube. Really appreciate you guys being here. Ask that you subscribe so we can keep you informed of everything going on here in Huntsville.